Welcome to the December 2024 edition of the Presale Pulse, a real estate show dedicated to everything happening in real estate across Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. I'm your host, Susana Gonzalez, and I'm joined by the Fraser Valley's ultimate gift to real estate, Brittany Reimer.
Oh, thanks, Suze. It's the most wonderful time of the year, as they say, to talk about real estate. Obviously.
It's certainly been an eventful year, and we'll be breaking it all down with 2024 presale recap later on in the show.
Now, Suze, do we think we should be putting this year's market on the naughty or the nice list?
That's a good one.
I think we can all agree on the answer there. But before we get into it, we have a lot to cover from the month of November, so let's jump right in.
All right, let's do it. Now, Suze, on the macro update, what is the latest?
Well, GDP grew by 1% in the third quarter. That's about in line with economists' expectations, though it's below the Bank of Canada's forecast of 1.5%.
Yeah, and let's not forget that 1.5% projection was already revised down from the initial estimate of 2.8%. Not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but the real GDP percent per capita has also dropped by 0.4%. This marks the sixth consecutive quarter of declining growth.
Yeah, and GDP per capita is more indicative of what's happening. And so to see that fall again definitely means we are all feeling the pinch and falling short.
Yeah, and with growth falling short of expectations, Suze, do you think this increase likelihood of a 50 basis point rate cut in December?
It's tough to predict because while sluggish GDP growth leans in favor of a larger cut, inflation tells a slightly different story. Inflation rose from 1.6% to 2% in October, which weakens the argument for a 50 basis point reduction. It's definitely a balancing act between supporting our GDP and keeping our CPI under control, but we expect the new employment data released on December 6th will also affect this decision.
Yeah, another hot topic, what's your take on the recent GST break? Do you think it'll have much of an impact on the economy?
Well, this break is obviously a political one aimed to help consumers during the holiday spending season and an often sluggish January. But the concern here is that the tax break could temporarily bump up our GDP, creating what feels like an artificial growth, short-lived and not reflective of the economy's underlying strength or weakness, as it were, and ultimately push inflation even higher.
Yeah, and I have so many opinions on this GST break, Suze. Like, who's really benefiting 10 days before Christmas? Big question mark there. Now, while it may boost retail sales, it does little to alleviate financial strain in areas that matter most, like housing, energy, or transportation. Like, why could we not apply this GST break towards anything housing? 5% GST on a new home or GST on construction materials. Instead of piecemeal measures, there's a need for a cohesive tax policy that balances fiscal responsibility with citizen well-being. And a temporary change on some items is also creating a lot of confusion to what is truly exempt and what isn't, and who's going to receive these savings, how much of a difference it'll actually make. Deep breath. I feel like I'm going on a rant, but I also read somewhere that the saving for Canadian households has been increasing. That's an interesting headline. Suze, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think at first glance it sounds like it's good news. However, just that headline really doesn't tell the full story. If we dig a little deeper, it turns out most of these increased savings are only coming from top earners in Canada. Meanwhile, low and middle income Canadians are having a harder time keeping up with inflation, with most spending more than they ever have on essential goods.
Yeah, and raising savings aren't always a sign of something positive. Historically, we've seen savings increase when people are worried about economic uncertainty and want to grow a bigger rainy day fund, which is exactly why investors have been sitting on the sidelines and what we've been seeing in our local market.
Yeah, exactly. Now, right now, there's a lot of uncertainty economically. Interest rates still not where they need to be. We're still watching inflation closely. A new president down south, which is still our largest trading partner. Hasty artificial government actions that do little to actually get our underlying economic engine moving. So consumer confidence is still on shaky ground with so many unknowns. Now, on that somewhat sad note, let's move into some pre-sale stuff.
Are you sure we want to do that? Let's jump into it. Now, with the year coming to a close, I was thinking we could discuss a bit about the 2024 recap, highlighting some key trends and events that we saw in the presale market, and of course, dive into some stats. Now, let's start off with November. We had 7 projects launch, releasing just under 1,000 units. As for 2024, over 115 projects launched across Metro Vancouver, releasing over 11,500 homes.
That's quite a significant number of projects coming to market, particularly with the muted sales activity that has been felt throughout the market in 2024. So back in January, advisory team estimated around 110 projects and approximately 13,500 units would launch this year in the MLA 2024 Intel report. Now, we weren't too far off. A fewer units and a few higher number of projects, but pretty close overall.
Yeah, that's right. So in 2024, 2024, reduced investor interest due to policy changes, high interest rates, and unattractive price points delayed many concrete launches, with wood frame projects leading the market by product type, with around 50 projects launched and over 5,000 units released.
And with wood frame leading the way, it's no surprise that Fraser Valley saw more project launches than Greater Vancouver, with over 60 projects introducing nearly 6,500 units to the market this year.
It seems like Valley's just the place to be. It's a phrase that I've probably said a few times last year if we were really looking at 2024 as a whole.
In November, the absorption rate for launched product was about 24%, which is typical given seasonal trends in the transition to the holiday season, although still slightly lower than where we'd like to see it. In 24, even with the Bank of Canada beginning to lower interest rates midway through the year and continuing in the latter half, buyer interest remains subdued, particularly with those investors you mentioned. The year concluded with an absorption rate of over 40% for released units, aligning closely with our advisory team's estimate of 43% from last year's Intel report.
And why not give another shameless plug to our advisory team? Our 2025 MLA Intel report will be released this January, so stay tuned for more details on 2024 stats and our 2025 forecasts. Speaking of forecasts, what can we expect for the final month of 2024 here, Suze?
Typical to what we would expect in December, 2 projects are set to launch in the final month of the year, releasing 229 units. Both projects are wood frame construction, Marianne's Place by Placemaker Communities in Port Moody, and Caleb by Whitetail Homes in Abbotsford.
Now, Marianne's Place started taking home selection forms in the last week of November, following the Realtor event in mid-November. The project has a nostalgic, community-centered vibe. I like how they've really tied their marketing to Port Moody's history, highlighting the charm and character of that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a great way to grab the attention of the community and to create some buzz amongst the residents. This is only the second wood frame project to launch in Port Moody over 2024, an area that hasn't seen too much activity in terms of project launches this year.
So, Suze, is there a city that led market in terms of project launches last year?
Well, I think you're only asking because you already know the answer. Surrey has led the market with project launches over 2024, comprising over 25% of the wood frame and the concrete launches over the year. South Surrey led the market for townhomes, accounting for over 20% of all launches in this product type.
Like I said before, for the 100th time, Fraser Valley is the place to be. Now, this year's activity has primarily focused on affordability, both in location and product type, drawing in end users like first-time buyers and downsizers looking for a simpler, more compact living option.
Yeah, so far this year, the Fraser Valley has seen a higher absorption rate versus Greater Vancouver at over 40% of its released units absorbed. This end-user-driven product at smaller scale and therefore less units with more affordable price points in the valley definitely led the way. When broken down by product type, wood frame homes saw the highest absorption rates, followed by townhomes, with concrete, of course, lagging behind.
Yeah, reflecting on 2024, the most successful projects were in sought-after communities, whether that was accessibility to the unique neighborhood appeal or offering competitive price points paired with extensive offerings, including 5% deposits, and really generous buyer and realtor incentives.
Yeah, it definitely came down to sort of the perfect combination and recipe this year, which is tough to do when these programs are being imagined years in advance. We saw many projects experimenting with different approaches to try and hit that mark.
Now, the big question is, how will this translate into 2025? Will we see continued shifts in buyer sentiment as more interest rate drops are expected?
Yeah, great question. As always, we'll keep exploring these trends as they develop in the new year. In the meantime, our 2025 MLA Intel report will provide insights on all the trends from 2024 and what to expect in 2025. Last plug. Now let's dive into our first feature, Arden by Aria Pacific.
Now, Arden will feature homes ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms, most of which will feature a den or an in-suite storage room.
Yeah, what stands out to me about Arden is its best of all worlds location in Vancouver West, offering not 2 but 3 incredible advantages. Not only is it just steps away from the King Edward SkyTrain, you'll find yourself right between Cambie Village and Oakridge, with Queen Elizabeth Park only a short stroll away.
And it is also concrete construction, which is great. We know that's always a very popular choice for the West Side market.
Yeah, we know that market prefers concrete. Livability in the home was also a priority, trying to make it super functional. Larger homes have double vanities in the en-suites, for example, something we've been seeing less of lately due to spaces getting more compact. So nice to see this feature back in.
Yeah, speaking of livability, they've also included islands with the extendable dining table and select homes, a feature that we're seeing quite popular these days.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing it more and more as many homes now are able to they're not able to fit both a dining room table and an island. So offering a solution like this really helps to ease the compromise.
Yeah, and I know Vancouver West is usually associated with end users rather than investors, but I think this project would also make a fantastic investment opportunity.
Yeah, as locations along Cambie goes, this is one of the strongest, and it's only going to get better as Oakridge fully develops. Plus, it's an excellent school catchment area, home to some of the highest rated public and private schools. This would likely be a sought-after rental for young families who aren't in a position to buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Arden is anticipated to launch in early 2025 and is now taking registrations. So please register if you're interested.
So let's move on to our next project feature, another exciting project on the west side, Rhodes by Listrator.
Yeah, when I think of Rhodes, the first thing that comes to mind is our favorite 3 words: location, location, location.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the location of Rhodes is truly once in a lifetime.
Yeah, picture this. You step out your door, you're at Queen Elizabeth Park. It doesn't get much better than that.
Like, actually at. And on top of that, it's tucked away on a quiet street, just 1 block off Cambie, so none of the homes facing the busy, noisy road.
Yeah, you really do get all the convenience of Cambie Village without the hustle, bustle, and noise. Perfect balance.
Agreed. Now we know location is key. This one's pretty special. Additionally, we have Locarno and Listrator, 2 well-established family-owned companies bringing this product to market. Both have long development legacies on the west side, known for quality, livability, and design. Fan favorites for sure.
Yeah, and you can really see it in their floor plans. Spacious, thoughtfully designed, flex rooms in every home, just so functional. Large outdoor spaces, and I'll never complain about a 9-foot ceiling.
Yeah, you know how much I love a high ceiling. Where to go? Let's go. All the 2 and 3 bedroom homes have room for the island and dining table we were speaking of earlier. Even some of the 1-beds do too. And if you haven't seen the design, I would really encourage you to check it out. They did some lovely design details on the island and in the kitchen that are really beautiful.
Yeah, and some of the amenities to speak of as well. There's sauna and outdoor rain shower. It's like a little spa in the comfort of your own home. Now, Rhodes is selling and is off to a really impressive start. We've seen some of our top-end homes go first as end users see the value of this perfect combination of location, builder, and design.
Yeah, now speaking of perfect recipes, Rhodes is a good example of how a well-crafted, unique offering will always draw interest regardless of market conditions. All right, let's turn our attention over to the resale market. Britt, what is the latest?
Yeah, gotta love some resale stats. Now, I'll admit I was a bit worried October's positive momentum might have been a one-off, but it seems like that sales activity is somewhat carrying through. While many buyers may be busy getting into the holiday groove and activity didn't necessarily increase from October, there is still demand out there that we're seeing.
Yeah, we'll certainly take any positivity we can get. This time of year is typically slower, so seeing buyers continue to take advantage of current market conditions is definitely a positive sign, although still not quite where we want it to be. In both Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, sales this November are higher than they have been in the past 2 Novembers, which is great news.
Yeah, we're moving in the right direction, but as you indicated, Suze, there's still progress to be made. Sales in Greater Vancouver are still nearly 13% below the 10-year seasonal average and almost 20% below in the Fraser Valley.
I guess Vancouver's not so bad a place to be either. Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. Naturally, momentum will slow in the final month of the year. However, let's hope that with 1 more interest rate drop expected to close out 2024 and an early Lunar New Year in 2025, we can start the new year off strong. I, for one, am over 2024, and I'm looking forward to things trending upwards in 2025.
That's a great point. On the listing side, the increased demand and time of year seems to be gradually reducing. The total number of active listings for November in both the Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley, active listings dropped nearly 9% and 8% respectively.
Yeah, if we look specifically at new listings, there was a decline in the number of new properties that were brought to market in November compared to October. This has helped ease the pressure on the sales to active listings ratios this month. In November, the sales to active listings ratio dropped by 1 to 2% in both markets to 17% in Greater Vancouver and 14% in the Fraser Valley, both representing balanced markets.
Yeah, and with balanced conditions, pricing has remained actually relatively stable in both markets, dropping only marginally or not at all month over month, and seeing just slight decreases throughout the year.
Yeah, that's right. And with new mortgage reforms coming into effect mid-December, coupled with further interest rate drops, this might help spur demand in the new year.
Yeah, let's hope so. Increasing the insured mortgage cap from $1 million to $1.5 million will help more buyers qualify for a mortgage, which is great. Additionally, expanding the 30-year amortization period to include all first-time buyers and buyers of new builds will help reduce monthly mortgage costs and make, hopefully, homeownership more attainable. Although I still think there's more we could have done.
Yeah, these changes will give buyers more flexibility, so we may see that translate into more steady demand. I agree, maybe more could have been done. As always, we'll be on top of the market and we'll keep you updated with the latest insights.
I feel like we're missing like a cranberry martini or something here. Like, where's our Christmas vibe?
Yeah, well,
There's always January.
why didn't you bring anything?
I should have. Here, let me grab my shaker. And on that note, that's a wrap on this month's Presale Pulse. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out our daily newswire, a daily email roundup of all the breaking news in the world of real estate.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you next month as we look ahead to the new year.